The hall was enormous, lit by strange glowing crystals that hung from the ceiling like frozen stars. Alien warriors of all shapes and sizes crowded the arena, their eyes fixed on the small human standing in the center. Ethan felt the weight of 100 gazes, each one judging, mocking, and expecting him to fail. He had been told that humans were weak, slow, and fragile, creatures not meant for battle. He had trained in his own way, but this was nothing like anything he had faced before. Vera, the alien princess, stepped forward. Her body was tall and muscular, every movement precise and commanding. Her greenish skin glimmered under the crystal light, and her eyes sparkled with amusement. In her hand, she held the clan's ceremonial mace, a weapon so heavy that even the strongest male aliens struggled to lift it. The weapon itself seemed alive, humming faintly as if eager for combat. She placed it carefully on the floor in front of Ethan, the metal clinking loudly in the silence. "I give you this," she said, her voice cold but teasing, "so you may show everyone your strength, or prove you are a human after all." She leaned closer, and Ethan noticed the smirk playing on her lips. She expected him to fail. Every eye in the hall believed he would drop it immediately. Every muscle in his body tensed as he prepared to bend down. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of history pressing down on him. This was not just a test of strength, it was a test of will, courage, and dignity. He crouched, wrapping his fingers around the mace's handle. From the moment his hands touched the cold metal, he could feel its immense weight. His arms shook under the pressure, every nerve in his body screaming for relief. Sweat ran down his face, but he did not let go. He would not let go. Not yet. Vera's eyes narrowed. She expected him to falter, and when he did not, a flicker of surprise crossed her face. The crowd gasped. Aliens muttered among themselves. No human had ever held the mace for more than a few seconds. It was thought impossible. But Ethan's fingers clung to the weapon, his muscles quivering, and his legs bending slightly to support the weight. Every movement was a struggle, but he refused to yield. The elders of Vera's clan began murmuring. They whispered of the old tradition that few dared to mention aloud. If a warrior, or any creature, could lift the mace and hold it without dropping it, that creature earned the right to claim the wielder's bond in their society. It was a bond of respect, loyalty, and often partnership for life. The crowd started to understand what was happening. A human, fragile and underestimated, was defying centuries of expectation. Vera's smirk vanished. Her hands twitched at her sides. She had expected mockery, laughter, and a quick failure. Instead, she saw her weapon in the hands of someone who refused to break. She had never encountered such stubbornness. Her pride as a warrior was challenged not by another alien, but by a human whose body seemed too small, too weak to carry the mace. Ethan's legs ached. Every fiber of his body screamed at him to drop the mace, to surrender. His arms burned like fire, and sweat poured down his face and back. But his eyes were fixed on Vera, and something in her expression told him this was more than just a simple test. She was watching, calculating, and waiting. He did not understand the full meaning yet, but he sensed the danger and the challenge entwined in her gaze. A crowd of alien warriors began counting silently, measuring how long a human could hold the mace. Seconds stretched into minutes. Whispers filled the hall, a mix of shock and disbelief. Some aliens shook their heads, muttering that humans had no right to survive these tests. Others leaned closer, intrigued by this strange display of determination. Ethan's breathing was harsh, uneven, but he did not let it show. Each breath, each moment, strengthened his resolve. He had come too far to falter now. Vera's voice, sharp and commanding, cut through the murmurs. "Drop it, human. You cannot carry what you were never meant to lift." But Ethan did not respond. His grip tightened. He shifted slightly, finding balance, adjusting his stance. The mace wobbled in his hands, threatening to topple him, but he held on. The crowd fell silent once more, sensing that something extraordinary was unfolding. For a moment, time seemed suspended. Ethan and Vera stared at each other, their eyes locked. He saw not just amusement or challenge in her gaze, but respect, hesitant, cautious, but undeniable. He realized then that this was more than strength. It was a test of courage, heart, and character. A human had never stood here before, facing the traditions of an alien clan, and yet here he was, refusing to give in. Finally, Vera spoke again, her tone softer but still firm. "By our tradition, she began, but she paused, her eyes flicking to the elders. They nodded, confirming what she had not said aloud. Holding the mace without dropping it meant Ethan now had a claim, an unusual and forbidden one, over the bond between warrior and wielder. The crowd buzzed with astonishment. Aliens whispered among themselves, shocked that a human had survived the first step of the trial. Ethan still did not fully understand the implications. He only knew one thing. He had survived what no human should have, and the mace had not fallen from his hands. He straightened slightly, still holding the weapon, feeling a mix of pain and pride. Vera took a step back, studying him in a new light. Her plan to humiliate him had failed. The human before her was strong, brave, and unyielding. As the murmurs grew louder, Ethan felt the weight of expectation shift. It was no longer just about holding the mace. He had proven something fundamental. Humans were not as weak as everyone believed. The hall, once filled with doubt and mockery, now trembled with uncertainty and awe. Vera clenched her jaw, realizing that tradition had unexpectedly turned against her expectations. She had given him the mace to see him fail, but instead, he had succeeded. And now, she knew that everything was about to change. The crowd's eyes followed every small movement he made. Every shake of his arms, every breath, every inch he adjusted was proof of his determination. The human had surprised everyone, but most of all, he had surprised Vera herself. She had intended to dominate and humiliate, but in this moment, she saw strength, courage, and an unbroken spirit she had not anticipated. This was only the beginning, and already the balance of power had shifted. The hall erupted in whispers and murmurs, eyes wide with astonishment as Ethan continued to hold the mace. Vera's smirk returned slightly, but now it was mixed with something else, a hint of respect and perhaps even fear. The challenge had begun, and the human had already passed the first impossible test. The hall was still buzzing from the shock of what had just happened. Ethan stood holding the heavy mace, his arms trembling but steady, and Vera's eyes never left him. The elders whispered among themselves, their expressions a mix of disbelief and concern. By the traditions of her clan, the human's feat had granted him a right he did not yet understand fully. That right was not trivial. It bound the one who held the mace and the one who offered it in a bond recognized by law and custom. Vera, the proud alien warrior princess, suddenly realized she had placed herself in a position she could not ignore. Vera tried to regain control of the situation. She straightened her posture, her green skin glinting under the glowing crystals, and spoke with a voice sharper than a blade. "Human," she said, her words cutting through the murmur of the crowd. "You have succeeded in holding the mace. That is true, but do not mistake this for skill. It is strength alone that has brought you this far. You do not yet know what this bond requires." Ethan blinked, confused but curious. He had no idea what the consequences of holding the mace would be, only that he had survived a challenge meant to break him. Still, he felt a strange mixture of pride and unease. The weight of the mace was no longer physical alone. It was now a symbol, a sign that he had crossed a line into alien customs and laws he did not understand. The elders approached slowly, their steps measured and deliberate. Each one was a veteran of countless wars and rituals, and they had seen many warriors fail where Ethan had succeeded. They nodded to each other, their faces serious, acknowledging that the tradition must now take its course. One elder spoke, his voice deep and resonant. "By holding the mace, you have earned the right to claim a bond with the wielder. The bond is sacred. It is not given lightly, and it cannot be refused." Vera's eyes widened. She had expected to humiliate this human, to show the clan that humans were weak and undeserving. Instead, she was faced with a reality she had not anticipated. The bond, once meant as a form of honor and protection within her people, now hung in the balance. If Ethan claimed it, her life would change forever. If he refused, both of them could face consequences for dishonoring the tradition. The crowd grew tense, sensing the gravity of the moment. Aliens whispered among themselves, some shocked, some impressed, and others angry. To them, humans were fragile creatures, not meant for warrior traditions. And yet, here was Ethan, a human, standing firmly, holding the mace and ignoring the danger that surrounded him. Vera stepped forward, her movements careful and deliberate. "Do you understand what this means, human?" she asked, her tone a mix of warning and curiosity. "This is not just about holding a weapon. This is about loyalty, trust, and partnership. By tradition, one who holds the mace may claim the bond of the one who gave it. Are you prepared to face that? Ethan took a deep breath, trying to understand the weight of her words. He had survived a challenge no human was supposed to survive, but now he was facing something entirely new. He was not just proving strength, he was confronting alien law, alien tradition, and the potential for a bond that could change his life forever. He felt the pressure of countless eyes upon him, the murmurs of the crowd echoing in his ears, and the piercing gaze of Vera fixed firmly on him. Vera's smirk had faded. She had expected laughter, embarrassment, and the spectacle of failure. Instead, she saw a human standing tall, steady, and resolute. Her pride as a warrior made her hesitant to admit it, but she could not deny the courage and determination she saw before her. For the first time, she felt uncertain. The human's presence challenged not just her expectations, but the traditions she had grown up with. The elders watched closely as Ethan adjusted his grip on the mace. His arms were trembling, but his resolve was unbroken. He looked at Vera and realized that the bond was not just about rules or tradition. It was about trust, respect, and the choices they would make together. He understood, even if only vaguely, that this moment was more than a simple challenge. It was the beginning of something much larger, something that would test him in ways he could not yet imagine. Vera's clan began to speak among themselves more loudly, debating what should happen next. Some argued that the human should be allowed to claim the bond. Others said it was impossible, that a human could never understand their ways or traditions. The tension in the hall grew, every alien present feeling the weight of history pressing down on them. Ethan felt the eyes of the crowd, the whispers of the elders, and the intensity of Vera's gaze. He realized that the challenge was no longer physical. It was now a test of courage, character, and decision-making. Holding the mace had brought him here, but what he would do next would determine not only his fate, but the fate of the bond itself. Vera stepped closer, her voice dropping to a quieter, more serious tone. "The bond is binding," she said. "It is not a choice made lightly. Once accepted, it cannot be broken. You must understand that it is not just a partnership. It is a commitment to stand by me, to fight with me, and to protect me as I would protect you. Are you willing to accept that responsibility?" Ethan swallowed hard. He felt the full weight of the mace in his hands and the even heavier weight of the decision before him. He knew that whatever he chose would change everything. It was not just about strength anymore. It was about courage, honor, and the willingness to step into a world he had never truly understood. The crowd grew silent, waiting for his answer. Every alien present sensed the importance of this moment. To them, it was history unfolding. The day a human stood firm, defied expectations, and now faced the most sacred of traditions. Ethan took another deep breath, gripping the mace tightly, and felt a strange confidence rise within him. He had survived the challenge, and now he was ready to face whatever came next, even if it meant walking into alien customs that tested the very limits of his understanding. Vera's eyes softened slightly, her tone less teasing and more contemplative. She realized that this human, fragile and underestimated though he appeared, had already proven himself in ways that went beyond mere strength. The bond, once meant to honor alien warriors, might now serve a new purpose. The crowd, sensing the tension, waited with bated breath. Every second felt like an eternity, as they all watched the human who had lifted the impossible mace and now faced a choice that could change the course of their lives. Ethan's heart pounded, his mind racing, but he held the mace steadily. The whispers of the elders, the expectant eyes of the warriors, and the piercing gaze of Vera weighed on him. Yet he felt a strange clarity. This was not just a test of strength, it was a test of character, courage, and heart. And for the first time he realized that he might just be ready to face it all. The hall remained silent, the air thick with anticipation, as Ethan's grip on the mace never wavered. He had passed the first test, but the second, far more complicated trial had only just begun. The bond awaited, and with it, the challenges, dangers, and unexpected adventures that would follow. Ethan still held the massive mace, his muscles screaming with every second that passed, yet he refused to release it. The hall had gone silent, the crowd of alien warriors frozen in anticipation. Vera, the alien princess, stepped closer, her usual confident smirk replaced by a mixture of curiosity and caution. She had expected him to drop the weapon within moments, yet here he was, gripping it as if it were light as a feather. His determination was impossible to ignore. The elders of the clan began to speak among themselves, their voices low but urgent. This was unprecedented. A human holding the ceremonial mace for so long was something they had never witnessed. In their culture, this mace was not just a weapon, it symbolized strength, leadership, and the right to challenge authority. The one who could lift it was respected, and the one who gave it willingly recognized the holder's power. Ethan, a human, was breaking centuries of tradition with nothing but his own courage and strength. Vera's gaze sharpened. She knew that the bond created by the mace was more than legal. It was spiritual and social. By the rules of her people, the person who accepted the bond would have access to her loyalty, her trust, and her protection. And for a human to even be considered worthy of this bond, it was unheard of. Her heart raced with a mixture of irritation and reluctant respect. She wanted to humiliate him, to prove once and for all that humans were weak, but Ethan had refused to play by her expectations. A few younger warriors whispered excitedly, pointing at Ethan and marveling at his determination. Some elders shook their heads, warning that such audacity might bring trouble. The air in the hall felt charged, like a storm ready to break. Ethan's arms burned with fatigue, and yet he did not flinch. Each drop of sweat that fell from his brow was a testament to his resolve. Every alien watching him knew that the human was doing the impossible. Vera stepped closer, circling him like a predator studying prey. "Do you know what this means?" she asked, her voice steady but sharp. "This bond is sacred. It is not granted lightly. If you claim it, you are bound to me by honor and law. Your life, your actions, and your loyalty will now be entwined with mine." Ethan looked up at her, still gripping the mace, and nodded slowly. He did not yet understand all the customs, but he understood one thing. He could not back down now. The weight of the mace pressed down on him, but it was not just a physical strain. It was symbolic. Every second he held it, he was proving that humans were capable of far more than the aliens ever believed. The murmurs among the crowd grew louder. Aliens exchanged shocked glances. Many had expected laughter, ridicule, and failure. But Ethan was proving something far greater. He was showing courage, strength, and determination that transcended species. Vera's eyes softened, though her body remained tense. She had underestimated him completely. Her people had always viewed humans as weak, fragile, and unworthy of their traditions. Yet, here was a human defying their expectations, challenging their assumptions, and refusing to yield. She could see the pride in the eyes of some younger warriors, who were inspired by his perseverance. Even some elders could not hide their admiration, though their faces remained serious. Minutes passed, and Ethan's arms shook violently. His grip on the mace was tested beyond limits, but he refused to let go. He adjusted his stance, shifting his weight carefully to maintain balance. The crowd held its collective breath. Every movement he made was observed and measured, every detail noted. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made hearts race and palms sweat. No one spoke, but everyone felt the magnitude of the moment. Vera finally broke the silence. "You are more than I expected," she admitted, her tone reluctant but honest. "Humans are unpredictable. You are strong, but strength alone is not enough. This bond requires understanding, respect, and trust. Are you truly prepared to accept all of this?" Ethan's eyes met hers, unwavering. He nodded again. It was not just about lifting the mace anymore. It was about proving that he could face alien traditions with courage, that he could step into a world far removed from his own and survive. The elders began to chant softly, a ritual that honored the bond being formed. Their voices reverberated through the hall, creating an almost magical atmosphere. Ethan felt the weight of the mace in his hands and the weight of their expectations pressing down on him. It was exhausting, both physically and mentally, yet he remained steadfast. He realized that every second he held the mace was a statement, not just of strength, but of human determination and resilience. Vera watched closely as the ritual continued. She had intended to control every moment, but the human had taken the power of choice into his own hands. He was not merely following her lead, he was making a mark on the tradition itself. Her pride and authority felt challenged, yet she could not deny the respect that began to grow within her. He was proving that humans were capable of far more than she had imagined. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Ethan's arms trembled, but he remained upright. The elders' chanting grew louder, signaling approval. The bond, once thought impossible between a human and an alien warrior, was now being recognized. The crowd erupted in astonished whispers and quiet applause. Vera stepped forward, her posture firm, her voice calm but serious. By holding the mace and standing strong, you have proven yourself worthy. The bond is now in place. Know this, it carries responsibilities, dangers, and expectations that cannot be ignored. Ethan lowered the mace slowly, but never released his grip until the elders signaled the completion of the ritual. His muscles screamed, his body trembled, but a quiet pride settled over him. He had survived the impossible, faced alien traditions head-on, and earned a bond that no one thought a human could claim. Vera studied him carefully, recognizing his courage and resolve. The hall, once filled with doubt and ridicule, now acknowledged the human who had defied expectations. The moment was historic. Aliens whispered among themselves, realizing that their assumptions about humans had been wrong. Vera, though still proud and formidable, felt a newfound respect for Ethan. He had passed the challenge not just with strength, but with heart, determination, and courage. From this point forward, nothing would be the same. The human had entered their world, and he had proven that he belonged. Even as Ethan set the mace down, the tension in the hall remained thick. The bond had been formed, but the real journey was only beginning. Vera's eyes met his one last time, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. She had tried to control him, test him, and perhaps even humiliate him, but in the end, he had rewritten the rules. He had claimed respect, honor, and a bond that would change both their lives forever. The crowd erupted into murmurs and whispers, some in shock, some in admiration, but all recognizing that history had been made. Ethan, a human, had faced an alien tradition designed to test the strongest of warriors and had emerged victorious. Vera, the alien princess, had been forced to acknowledge his strength, courage, and spirit. The challenge was over, but the story, the bond, the expectations, and the adventures to come had only just begun. The hall was still buzzing from the completion of the ritual, but a new tension had begun to settle in the air. Ethan, though exhausted from holding the mace, now faced a different kind of challenge. The bond had been recognized by tradition, but understanding its meaning was another matter entirely. Vera's eyes watched him closely, her gaze sharp and assessing. She was no longer trying to humiliate him. She was testing him, seeing if he could navigate a world that was entirely alien, with rules he did not fully understand. Vera stepped closer, her movements fluid and confident. "The bond is more than strength," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "It is trust. It is respect. You must prove yourself worthy not only to me but to everyone who watches." Ethan nodded, trying to absorb every word. He had survived the physical challenge, but this new test required his mind as much as his body. Every action he took now would be judged, every glance analyzed. The elders began to circulate around them, their eyes sharp and calculating. They watched Ethan with curiosity and caution. Some whispered to each other, debating whether a human could truly understand the weight of the bond. Others shook their heads, warning that alien traditions were not something a human could easily navigate. The hall felt alive with anticipation, the weight of history pressing down on everyone present. Vera handed Ethan a small, polished token. It was a symbol of the bond, crafted with alien metals that gleamed in the dim light. "This represents our connection," she explained. "It is not just a formality. It is a commitment. You must carry it with honor. Do you understand?" Ethan took the token carefully, feeling its weight, both physical and symbolic. He nodded again, though he still did not fully grasp the depth of the commitment he had just accepted. The young warriors in the hall began to murmur among themselves. Some admired Ethan's courage, others doubted his understanding, but none could deny the significance of the moment. Humans had always been underestimated in this part of the galaxy, considered weak, unpredictable, and unworthy of serious attention. Yet here was Ethan, a human, holding the token of a sacred bond, standing in a place reserved for the strongest and most honored warriors. Vera moved to the center of the hall, her posture commanding attention. You have proven strength, she said aloud, addressing the crowd. But strength alone does not make a warrior worthy of trust. You must now prove your wisdom, your judgment, and your understanding of honor. This bond carries responsibilities you cannot ignore. Ethan listened intently. He realized that surviving the Mace Challenge was only the beginning. The true test had begun, the test of character, of decision-making, and of navigating a world far different from his own. The elders nodded in approval, signaling that Ethan was ready to continue. He could feel the eyes of the entire hall upon him, weighing every movement, every choice. His mind raced, trying to remember everything Vera had taught him about her people, their customs, and their expectations. One wrong step could bring dishonor, not just to him, but to the bond he had just formed. Vera extended her hand, and Ethan followed instinctively. She led him toward a series of intricate obstacles arranged across the hall. Each obstacle was designed to test not only strength, but intelligence, strategy, and the ability to work with another being. "This is your next test," she said. "It is not about brute force. It is about understanding, cooperation, and patience. The bond is meaningless if you cannot navigate these challenges together." Ethan followed her carefully, his muscles still sore from holding the mace. The first obstacle was a narrow bridge suspended over a glowing chasm. The bridge wobbled with every step, and Ethan had to balance carefully while keeping pace with Vera. He felt her presence beside him, guiding subtly, her eyes sharp and critical. This was a test of coordination and trust, and he realized that the bond required more than physical strength. It required him to listen, observe, and respond intelligently. As they moved through the obstacles, Ethan began to understand more of Vera's world. Each test was a lesson in alien traditions, a challenge that required patience, strategy, and respect for the environment. Some obstacles required teamwork, others demanded clever thinking or quick reflexes. Every step was a reminder that this bond was not a prize to be claimed lightly. It was a responsibility, a commitment that demanded continuous effort. Vera observed him closely, noting the way he adapted to each challenge. She saw his determination, his willingness to learn, and his respect for the customs she had set. Slowly, her initial skepticism began to fade. She realized that Ethan was not just surviving, he was thriving. He was proving that humans could rise to challenges that seemed impossible, that courage and determination could bridge gaps between species and cultures. The crowd remained silent, watching every movement. Aliens whispered among themselves, their astonishment growing with each successful step Ethan took. Some began to cheer quietly, impressed by the human who was not only enduring, but excelling. The elders, who had been skeptical at first, began to nod in approval, recognizing that Ethan's performance was extraordinary. At one point, Ethan faced a puzzle involving shifting platforms and moving lights. He paused, analyzing the situation carefully while Vera offered subtle hints. He adjusted his steps, timing each movement precisely, and successfully navigated the platforms. The crowd erupted into quiet applause. Ethan felt a surge of pride, not just for himself, but for proving that humans could meet the expectations of an alien culture with intelligence and perseverance. By the end of the series of challenges, Ethan's muscles burned, his mind was exhausted, but his spirit was strong. He had not only survived the physical trials, but had demonstrated the intelligence, patience, and cooperation that the bond required. Vera studied him carefully, her eyes now filled with respect. She realized that the bond was more than a tradition. It was a bridge between their worlds, and Ethan had crossed it with courage and honor. The elders stepped forward, signaling that the trials were complete. They spoke in low, measured tones, their approval unmistakable. Ethan had proven himself in ways that went beyond strength. He had shown intelligence, adaptability, and the ability to respect and honor alien traditions. The bond he had formed with Vera was now validated not just by the mace, but by the trials that tested every aspect of character. Vera finally spoke, her voice calm and deliberate. "You have proven yourself worthy," she said. "The bond is real. It is sacred. From this moment forward, you are not just a human in our presence. You are a partner, bound by honor, trust, and shared responsibility. Remember this, the challenges do not end here. Every day will test the strength of this bond, and you must meet them with courage, wisdom, and respect." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of her words and the significance of what he had accomplished. The hall, once skeptical, now recognized his worth. The young warriors looked at him with admiration, the elders with cautious approval, and Vyra with a mixture of respect and curiosity. The bond had been tested, challenged, and solidified. He had survived not just with strength, but with intelligence, courage, and honor. As he stood beside Vyra, the token of the bond in his hand, Ethan realized that he had not only passed the tests, but had begun to forge a connection that would define both their lives. The path ahead would be full of challenges, but he was ready. He had proven that humans could rise to any occasion, and the bond he shared with Vyra was now unbreakable, a symbol of trust, respect, and shared destiny. The hall had settled into a tense quiet after the completion of the trials. Ethan's body ached, but his mind was alert. He had survived the physical tests, proven his courage, and gained Vyra's cautious respect. Yet now he faced a new challenge, one far more subtle and intricate. The elders and warriors were watching closely, aware that the next stage would test his understanding of alien culture, social hierarchies, and diplomacy. The mace had granted him a bond by tradition, but living with the expectations of that bond would demand much more. Vyra stepped forward, her posture both commanding and graceful, her gaze fixed on Ethan, sharp but not hostile. "The bond you hold is not just about strength," she said softly. "It is about action, judgment, and choices. You must now demonstrate that you can uphold it with honor. Your next challenge is not physical, it is social. You will interact with our people and navigate situations that will test your judgment, empathy, and patience." Ethan nodded, trying to absorb the gravity of her words. He realized that surviving the physical tests was only the beginning. This stage would determine whether he could truly function within alien society. A group of warriors approached, carrying intricate devices that seemed designed to challenge both thought and intuition. Some of the devices were puzzles, some were simulations of alien situations, and others were tests of diplomacy. Vyra gestured to Ethan. "Each device represents a scenario you may face as someone bound by tradition to me. How you handle each one will reveal your understanding, respect, and intelligence." Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the eyes of everyone in the hall upon him. He approached the first device, which consisted of a complex grid of lights and levers. Each movement of a lever would trigger a reaction in the lights, and the goal was to achieve a specific pattern. It seemed simple at first, but the pattern required understanding not only logic, but also timing and sequence. Ethan studied it carefully, observing patterns in the lights. Slowly, he began to manipulate the levers, adjusting his actions with precision. Sweat formed on his brow, not from strength, but from the mental strain of concentration. As he completed the pattern, the lights blinked in a steady rhythm, signaling success. The crowd murmured in approval, impressed that a human could solve a problem so alien to their own methods. Even the elders, who had been skeptical of humans' abilities, nodded quietly, acknowledging his intelligence. Vyra's eyes flicked toward him, a hint of admiration softening her usual stern expression. "Good," she said. "You understand the importance of careful observation and patience, but this is only the first of many tests." The next challenge was a simulation of a negotiation. 2 holographic alien figures appeared, representing rival factions within the clan. Ethan was instructed to mediate a dispute using only the tools of logic, empathy, and understanding of tradition. The simulation presented conflicting demands and cultural nuances that were unfamiliar to him. He listened carefully, noting the tone, body language, and priorities of each figure. He spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. He appealed to shared values, respected traditions, and sought compromises that honored both parties' positions. The simulation reacted in real time, testing his adaptability. The figures responded positively, and the scenario concluded with a resolution that satisfied both sides. The crowd broke into quiet whispers of admiration. A human successfully navigating alien diplomacy, it was something many had doubted was possible. Vyra observed closely, evaluating not just the results, but Ethan's process. She noticed how he remained calm under pressure, how he listened attentively, and how he respected both the letter and the spirit of alien traditions. It was clear that his approach was methodical, respectful, and courageous in a different sense. He had survived physical challenges, but now he was proving himself in matters of wisdom, empathy, and judgment, qualities that were just as valued as strength in her culture. The next device was a test of reaction and intuition. Small alien creatures scurried across a platform, each programmed with erratic movements. Ethan was tasked with guiding them into specific areas using only gentle gestures, demonstrating control without aggression. He leaned forward, observing the creatures, predicting their paths, and guiding them patiently. It required precise timing and an understanding of alien biology. Each successful placement was met with soft cheers from the younger warriors, who were beginning to see him as more than just a strong human. They saw him as capable, intelligent, and adaptable. Finally, Vera presented the most personal test. She stepped close, holding a small container with a glowing liquid. "This represents a decision that affects both of us," she said. "You must choose wisely, for your choice will have consequences. This is a test of trust, judgment, and courage." Ethan studied her carefully. The liquid shimmered, almost hypnotic in its glow. He knew that the wrong choice could upset the delicate balance of their bond and possibly insult her people. His heart raced, but he focused on the principles he had learned: respect, understanding, and courage. He reached for the container with steady hands, considering both the immediate effects and the broader implications. He chose carefully, guided by both logic and empathy. Vera's eyes narrowed, assessing, and then she nodded. The choice was correct. A wave of approval spread through the hall. The elders murmured in recognition of his insight. Even the younger warriors, who had once doubted his abilities, now watched with a mixture of awe and respect. The tests had not been easy. They had challenged not only his mind, but his patience, his judgment, and his understanding of a culture far removed from his own. Ethan felt the strain of the mental exertion, but also a deep satisfaction. He realized that the bond he had earned with Vera was more than tradition. It was a connection that required continuous effort, learning, and adaptation. He had proven that humans could rise to challenges that required more than strength. They could rise to challenges of mind, character, and heart. Vera stepped forward once more, her expression a mixture of pride and cautious respect. "You have shown that you are capable not only of strength, but of understanding, patience, and judgment. This bond is not a prize. It is a responsibility. You have proven that you can carry it with honor. Remember this: every day will bring new challenges. Every choice you make will shape the bond and the respect you have earned." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. The hall, once filled with skepticism, now recognized his accomplishments. Young warriors whispered among themselves, inspired by his example. The elders, their doubts replaced by measured approval, acknowledged that the human had passed tests they never thought possible. The bond had been tested not just physically, but mentally and socially. Ethan had demonstrated that humans could not only survive, but thrive in a world built on alien traditions. As he stood beside Vera, the token of the bond resting in his hand, Ethan understood the significance of what he had accomplished. He had navigated physical challenges, mental puzzles, and social tests. He had earned trust, respect, and a connection that transcended species. The bond was no longer merely symbolic. It was real, powerful, and mutual. From this moment on, Ethan knew that the journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but he was ready. He had proven that humans could rise to meet them with courage, intelligence, and heart. Ethan could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on him as the hall grew silent once again. The earlier tests had challenged his strength, intelligence, and social understanding, but now the focus shifted toward endurance, resilience, and the subtle art of reading not only Vera, but the entire alien culture. Every eye in the hall was on him, measuring his reactions, every gesture and breath scrutinized. This was no longer about proving he could survive. It was about showing he could thrive under constant pressure while honoring the bond he had earned. Vera approached him, her movements deliberate and graceful. She extended her hand, guiding him to a long, narrow platform suspended above a shallow, glowing pit. The platform was sleek, almost alive, and it quivered slightly with each step. "This test is about balance," she said, her voice calm but authoritative. "It is not only physical. You must maintain focus, composure, and awareness. The path is treacherous, and one misstep will show weakness. Remember, your bond with me is watched by everyone here. Every movement carries meaning." Ethan nodded, feeling the intensity of her gaze. The platform shifted slightly under his weight, demanding precise movements. He placed his feet carefully, calculating every step as he progressed. The pit beneath him glowed ominously, a constant reminder that failure was visible and unforgiving. He felt his muscles strain, but it was his mind that worked hardest. He had to anticipate the platform's subtle movements and adjust instantly. As he advanced, small obstacles began to emerge. Holographic shapes appeared, shifting unpredictably in his path. They required not only balance, but quick decision-making. Ethan analyzed each pattern before moving, learning the rhythm, predicting the next change. Every successful step built his confidence, but he knew the test was far from over. Vera walked beside him, silent yet alert, her eyes reflecting both critique and approval. Halfway through the platform, a sudden challenge emerged. Sections of the path began to tilt and rotate independently, creating a disorienting effect. Ethan's body tensed as he leaned and adjusted, instinctively using his arms to counterbalance. His heart raced, not from fear, but from focus, from the pressure of knowing that every movement was being watched and judged. The young warriors observing began to murmur among themselves, impressed at the human's composure. Vera's hand lightly touched his elbow at one point, signaling a subtle adjustment. It was not an aid, merely a guide, a reminder that the bond required awareness and responsiveness. Ethan absorbed the signal instantly, adapting his movements with precision. He realized that this stage of the trial was about more than endurance. It was about connection, sensitivity, and attentiveness. A true partner did not act alone, but remained aware of subtle cues, ready to respond and adapt. The platform widened slightly, allowing for a momentary respite, but it was brief. Ethan could see the final challenge looming ahead, a series of moving barriers, tall and opaque, sliding back and forth at irregular intervals. Timing and coordination were crucial. He studied their rhythm carefully, waiting for the perfect moment to move. With a deep breath, he began, stepping through each opening with precise timing. A misstep could have caused him to stumble, but he maintained focus, his body responding fluidly to the shifting obstacles. Vera's gaze followed him intently, noting his poise, his patience, and his calculation. She was silently testing not only his ability to navigate physical danger, but his judgment under pressure. Each correct choice demonstrated a growing understanding of what the bond truly required: mind, body, and awareness combined, working in harmony. The crowd held its breath as Ethan approached the final section, where 3 obstacles moved simultaneously, demanding complex timing. Ethan paused for a fraction of a second, analyzing the patterns. His mind raced through potential options, rejecting hasty movements that could lead to failure. Then, with confidence, he advanced, moving with fluid precision as the obstacles shifted. The crowd erupted in quiet applause as he successfully crossed, completing the challenge without faltering. His body ached, but a deep satisfaction filled him. He had passed not only through a test of endurance, but through one that demanded mindfulness, intelligence, and attention to subtle signals. Vera stepped beside him, her expression softened. "You have shown resilience," she said, her voice calm but carrying weight. "You endured more than most could imagine. You maintained focus under pressure, adapted to changing conditions, and honored the bond with awareness and respect. This is the essence of the connection you now share with me." Ethan nodded, understanding that this trial was not about speed or strength alone, but about the combination of mind, body, and heart working in harmony. The elders approached, their expressions a mixture of approval and surprise. Many had doubted that a human could navigate such complex challenges, but Ethan had not only survived, he had excelled. They conferred briefly among themselves, their murmurs carrying approval for the courage, intelligence, and patience he had demonstrated. The young warriors looked at him with admiration, inspired by the human who could meet and exceed expectations in ways that transcended species boundaries. Vera handed Ethan a small, ornate token, different from the one given earlier. "This symbolizes endurance," she explained. "It represents your ability to face challenges that require both physical and mental resilience. Every day, life will present trials, both expected and unforeseen. This token is a reminder that you have proven your capability to meet them." Ethan held the token carefully, feeling its significance resonate deeply within him. It was more than a symbol. It was a testament to his growth, courage, and adaptability. As the hall filled with quiet approval, Ethan realized that this stage of the bond had revealed something profound. Strength alone was not enough. Wisdom, patience, awareness, and the ability to adapt under pressure were equally crucial. The bond required continuous effort, learning, and respect, not just for Vera, but for the traditions, people, and culture she represented. He had demonstrated that humans could rise to these challenges, blending courage with intelligence and presence of mind. Vera's eyes met his, a rare smile touching her lips. "You have endured," she said softly. "You have proven that the bond is meaningful and that you are capable of maintaining it. Remember this feeling, this clarity, and this focus. The bond is alive, and it will continue to test you in ways you cannot yet imagine." Ethan nodded, feeling both the weight and honor of her words. The platform challenges had tested him physically, mentally, and emotionally. He had emerged not only stronger, but wiser, aware of the delicate balance required to honor a bond rooted in tradition. The observers in the hall now regarded him with newfound respect, acknowledging that a human could indeed meet the highest expectations of an alien culture. Every movement, every decision, every step had been watched, and he had proven that courage, intelligence, and resilience could bridge worlds, creating a bond that was unbreakable and sacred. As he stepped down from the platform, Ethan understood the magnitude of what he had achieved. The trials were not yet over, but he had demonstrated that he could endure, adapt, and respect the bond. He had earned trust and recognition in ways that transcended species, proving that humans could rise to challenges that demanded not just strength, but courage, awareness, and heart. The air in the Grand Hall was thick with anticipation. Ethan had survived every trial so far: the physical challenges, the mental puzzles, the tests of judgment, diplomacy, and endurance. But now, the final stage awaited. This was the moment that would define not only his bond with Vera, but his place among her people. Every warrior, elder, and young observer leaned forward, their eyes fixed on him. The final trial was whispered about with reverence and fear. It was said to test the heart, courage, and spirit in ways no physical challenge could. Vera stepped toward him, her presence commanding yet intimate. Her eyes met his with an intensity that made him catch his breath. "This last trial," she said softly, "is the test of unity. You have proven your strength, intellect, and endurance. Now, you must prove that you can act in harmony with another being, that you can embody the bond we have formed and respect the responsibilities it entails. This is a test of mutual trust, instinct, and courage. Your actions will be observed not only by me, but by all who watch, to see if a human can truly uphold what tradition demands." The room darkened, and a large, circular platform rose from the floor. It was surrounded by a shallow pool of shimmering liquid that reflected the light in strange, shifting patterns. The platform itself was divided into concentric rings, each rotating independently, some faster, some slower, some in opposite directions. At the center stood a figure, cloaked and still. Ethan recognized it immediately. It was an alien warrior trained to emulate chaos, unpredictability, and danger. This figure would be the embodiment of the final test. Vera handed Ethan a long staff, its weight familiar but now carrying deeper significance. "You must reach the center," she said. "You must synchronize with your instincts, read the environment, and move with both caution and confidence. One false step, one lapse in judgment, and you fail, not just for yourself, but for the honor of the bond you hold." Ethan gripped the staff tightly, feeling its balance in his hands. He focused, tuning out the murmurs and whispers around him, centering himself for what lay ahead. He stepped onto the first rotating ring. Immediately, he felt the platform shift beneath him, challenging his balance. He moved deliberately, adjusting his stance with each turn, calculating the angles and anticipating the rotations. Every step required awareness of his own body and the motion of the ring. The alien warrior at the center remained motionless, yet its presence radiated an unspoken challenge. Ethan could feel the tension in the room, as if the air itself demanded perfection. Halfway across the first ring, Ethan encountered the first obstacle. Small energy orbs rose from the liquid surrounding the platform, spinning unpredictably and pulsing with bright light. A single touch would knock him off balance. He studied their patterns, observing the rhythm of their rise and fall. Timing became crucial. With patience and precise movements, he navigated between them, stepping lightly but firmly. Every successful maneuver drew quiet gasps of admiration from the spectators, who were not accustomed to seeing a human move with such skill and grace. The second ring rotated faster and in the opposite direction, demanding heightened focus and coordination. Ethan adjusted his weight, letting his instincts guide him. The air seemed to hum with tension. At one point, a sudden gust of wind, artificially generated, tried to push him off course. He leaned against it, using the staff for balance, feeling the strain in his arms and legs. The alien warrior at the center shifted slightly, an imperceptible movement that signaled the next stage. Ethan's pulse quickened, but he remained calm, letting training, intuition, and awareness guide him. As he approached the third ring, the final obstacle became clear. The warrior moved now, mirroring Ethan's steps with lightning speed, forcing him to predict and react simultaneously. This was a dance of instinct, reflex, and mutual awareness. Ethan's mind worked in tandem with his body, calculating angles, movements, and timing. Each step required trust in himself and in the bond he shared with Vera, whose eyes never left him. He realized that the essence of the test was not domination or force, but harmony, courage, and connection. Ethan advanced carefully, his movements flowing like water. The warrior's speed increased, challenging his reflexes and resolve. He ducked, twisted, and leaped with precision, avoiding strikes and missteps. Sweat poured down his face, but his focus never wavered. Every movement had meaning. Every decision tested his judgment and spirit. He could hear the gasps and whispers of the crowd, but they faded into background noise as he centered on the task at hand. Finally, he reached the innermost ring. The warrior lunged, but Ethan met the movement with composure, anticipating the strike and responding with controlled force. The clash was brief but intense, a test not of aggression, but of timing and harmony. Ethan felt the exhilaration of overcoming not just an opponent, but the culmination of all the lessons he had learned. The bond, the discipline, the awareness, and the courage that had guided him through every trial before. The warrior yielded, stepping aside, signaling the completion of the final challenge. A hush fell over the hall, then erupted into a chorus of approval and astonishment. Ethan had not merely survived, he had mastered the test, demonstrating that the bond he held was worthy of honor and respect. Vera stepped forward, her eyes reflecting pride, admiration, and a trace of something deeper. She extended her hand, and Ethan grasped it firmly, understanding that their connection had transcended ritual and tradition. It had become real, tested through challenge, patience, and courage. The elders approached, their expressions softened with approval. They recognized that a human had accomplished what few expected, blending strength, intelligence, endurance, and empathy into a display that honored the ancient traditions. Young warriors whispered among themselves, inspired by the human who had navigated trials meant to challenge the best of their kind. Ethan felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration, aware that he had proven something extraordinary, not just to Vera, but to an entire culture that had doubted him. Vera placed her hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You have completed the trials," she said softly, her voice carrying through the hall. "You have shown courage, patience, wisdom, and unity. You have earned not only respect, but trust, and with it, the responsibility of the bond. Remember that this is only the beginning. The bond is alive, and it will continue to grow and test you. You have shown that humans are capable of rising to challenges, even when the odds seem impossible." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight and honor of her words. The final trial had not only tested his physical and mental abilities, but had revealed his spirit, his ability to adapt, and his readiness to uphold a bond that transcended species. He had proven that humans could meet challenges of mind, body, and heart, earning trust, respect, and a place within a world that once seemed alien and impossible. As the hall erupted in celebration, Ethan stood beside Vera, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and anticipation. The trials were over, but their journey had only just begun. Every lesson, every challenge, and every test had prepared him for what lay ahead, showing that courage, intelligence, and heart could bridge worlds and forge bonds stronger than any tradition alone could demand. The bond was now real, tested, and unbreakable, ready to face the future together.